Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before we get started, just a quick reminder that you can subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, and even Amazon.
Oh, wow, even Amazon.
Yeah, it's pretty cool actually. But anyway, today's deep dive is a bit unsettling.
Oh.
You want to know if we're on the brink of World War III,
Oh, gosh.
especially with the war in Ukraine intensifying and the U.S. presidential elections coming up in 2025 with Donald Trump likely to win?
Right.
Honestly, it's a question a lot of people are asking, and the sources you sent in about Sweden and Finland's recent moves definitely add fuel to that fire.
Yeah, I can see why you'd say that.
I mean, those sources are pretty intense.
Right. These are historically neutral countries,
Yeah,
and they're suddenly taking steps to prepare their citizens for conflict.
exactly.
Like Sweden's distributing 5 million pamphlets
5 million.
titled, "If Crisis or War Comes." I mean,
Yeah.
that's a pretty clear sign they're worried.
For sure.
And Finland's launched a whole website
A whole website.
dedicated to crisis preparedness.
Wow.
It's a huge shift.
It's definitely a bit unnerving. Like, getting one of those pamphlets in your mailbox would make it all feel very real.
I can imagine.
So why this sudden change? The sources don't really spell it out, but I'm guessing it has something to do with Russia and Ukraine.
Absolutely. We can't ignore the context here.
Right.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022
Of course.
and the subsequent joining of NATO by these Nordic countries in 2024 have completely reshaped the geopolitical landscape.
So true.
They're basically right on Russia's doorstep
Yep.
and are clearly feeling the pressure.
Okay, so they're prepping for the worst case scenario, but what does that actually look like?
Yeah.
The sources mention people stockpiling supplies.
Right.
We're talking full-on doomsday prepper bunkers here?
Not quite, but they are being advised to have essentials on hand.
Okay.
Finland, for example, is stressing the importance of iodine tablets.
Iodine tablets.
And easy-to-prepare meals, especially given their long, harsh winters and the possibility of extended power outages.
Makes sense. Iodine tablets, not something I'd think about normally, but I guess in a nuclear fallout scenario, they'd be crucial.
Exactly. They help protect the thyroid gland from absorbing radioactive iodine.
Oh, wow.
It's a stark reminder of the potential consequences we're talking about here.
It really is.
And it's not just Finland.
Oh,
The sources mention Sweden recommending citizens stock up on staples like potatoes and canned goods.
so picture this, everyone rushing to the grocery store, grabbing all the potatoes and canned goods they can find.
Oh my gosh.
It's kind of funny to imagine, but also a little scary.
Yeah, definitely highlights the tangible anxiety people are feeling.
Right.
The sources you shared include firsthand accounts from citizens.
Yeah.
One Finnish student studying in Sweden mentioned being terrified for their family back home.
Oh, gosh.
Can you imagine being so far away from loved ones during a potential crisis?
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But it's not all doom and gloom, right? The sources also mention a Swedish resident, Ingam Gustaf, who seemed pretty calm about it all.
Oh, yeah.
He said he appreciated the guidance, but wasn't panicking.
Yes, and that's important to remember.
Yeah.
There's a sense of pragmatic acceptance among some. A recognition that while the threat is real, panicking won't help.
I could see that.
They're focusing on what they can control, like being prepared.
Makes sense.
But the sources also point out that this preparedness isn't easy for everyone.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Think about families living in small apartments. Where do they store months' worth of supplies?
Good point.
It raises some practical concerns.
That's a good point. It's easy to say be prepared, but the reality is much more complicated for many people.
Right.
But back to the bigger picture, is all of this really justified?
Wow.
Are we truly on the brink of a global conflict?
Hmm.
The sources mentioned some pretty alarming actions from Putin, like lowering the threshold for nuclear weapon use and authorizing the use of U.S.-manufactured missiles against Russian targets.
Right. It's incredibly concerning.
Yeah,
These actions directly contribute to the heightened sense of global anxiety
for sure.
and fuel fears of a wider conflict potentially dragging in NATO allies.
Oh, wow.
It feels like we're on a knife's edge.
Right.
And then there's another development that complicates things even further. The reports of North Korea potentially sending troops to support Russia in Ukraine.
North Korea getting involved.
Yeah.
Wow, the sources didn't go into a ton of detail on that, but it sounds like a major escalation.
It is.
What's their angle here?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
Some analysts believe it's primarily driven by economic interests.
Okay.
North Korea likely sees an opportunity to gain financially from supporting Russia.
Interesting.
Others argue it's more about ideological alignment, a shared opposition to the West. It's probably a combination of factors.
Yeah.
But regardless of their motivations, their involvement has significant implications.
I can imagine it's not like they have a great track record when it comes to peace.
No, not really.
How does this impact the situation in Ukraine, practically speaking?
Well, for starters, it could tip the balance of power on the ground, potentially prolonging the conflict.
I see.
It also adds a wildcard element.
Oh.
North Korea's military capabilities and tactics are somewhat of an unknown quantity,
Right.
which adds to the uncertainty.
And I'm guessing this isn't sitting well with South Korea.
Not at all. The sources highlight the already strained relationship between North and South Korea,
Yeah.
and this move will undoubtedly heighten tensions.
It's a powder keg situation.
Exactly. Any miscalculation could lead to a dangerous escalation.
So we've got these Nordic countries prepping for potential conflict, Putin making aggressive moves, and now North Korea throwing its hat into the ring.
It's a lot.
It paints a pretty bleak picture.
Mm.
Are there any glimmers of hope in all of this? This source did mention other Nordic countries taking action, right?
Yes, Norway and Denmark are also stepping up their crisis preparedness efforts.
Okay.
Norway is issuing survival pamphlets similar to Sweden's, and Denmark's focusing on providing digital resources to its citizens. It's a reminder that this isn't just a localized concern. The ripple effects of the conflict in Ukraine are being felt throughout Europe and beyond.
So it's safe to say the whole world is on edge right now, but is it accurate to say we're on the brink of World War III? It's a heavy question, especially with Trump likely back in the White House in 2025.
It is. It's the question everyone's asking.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
Right.
We're in uncharted territory.
I feel that.
The global landscape is more volatile and unpredictable than it's been in decades.
It really does feel that way.
The conflict in Ukraine has shattered the illusion of stability, and the potential for escalation is very real.
That's not exactly reassuring, but I appreciate the honesty. So where do we go from here? How do we make sense of all this and navigate this uncertainty?
I think the first step is to resist the urge to panic.
Okay.
While acknowledging the very real dangers we need to avoid getting swept up in fear and hysteria.
Easier said than done, but I agree.
Staying informed, engaging in thoughtful dialogue, and advocating for peaceful solutions are crucial.
That sounds like a good plan. Informed awareness over blind panic. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, but understanding the nuances is key.
Absolutely. And remember, history has shown us that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope.
I like that.
Humanity has an incredible capacity for resilience, cooperation, and ultimately peace. We can't lose sight of that.
That's a good reminder. It's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom, but focusing on positive action is important. So, with all that said, has the world entered a new era of potential conflict? Is the threat of a larger war more real than ever before?
That's the question that will likely define the years to come.
Yeah, for sure.
The actions of world leaders, the choices we make as individuals, and the collective will to pursue peace will determine the course of history.
Well, it's
a daunting prospect, but also an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to a future free from the horrors of war.
Powerful words. It's a lot to process, but I appreciate you breaking it all down. It's easy to feel powerless in the face of such global events, but understanding the complexities helps.
Exactly, and knowledge is empowering.
Right.
It allows us to engage in more informed discussions, make conscious choices, and advocate for the kind of world we want to live in.
Well said. It's definitely a lot to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into a truly heavy topic. Before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you to all our listeners for tuning in.
Until next time.
And don't forget to like this episode if you found it insightful. And be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon so you don't miss our future episodes. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.